Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. Welcome to the show, everybody. And speaking of adventures of a lifetime and creating stories and creating the stories of your life, we have a young lady with us who has spent her life creating stories. She really has. She's been doing this a little while. Couldn't have been doing it for that long because she ain't that old, but she is an accomplished author.
I am old. I really am. I'm taking some magic potion, but I'm over this, half century mark now. So eek.
Oh no, you're not. That means you're not even half done yet.
Okay, good.
But she's an award winner. She's as a matter of fact, she's won many awards. She's got Near As We Can Count. And it's amazing to me how an author, when I ask them, well, how many books have you written? And they're not exactly sure, because it's like birthing children, you would think, because it's the same thing, over and over and over again. But there are about 36 of them. She does co-writing with her husband, and who is Sam Lucky. I believe it's Sam, right?
Yep.
And her name, of course, is Ann Charles, and she lives in the Western United States, and I live in Seattle, and she is almost godlike to me because she got her degree from the University of Washington.
Woo-hoo!
Which is located smack in the middle of the city of Seattle. And did you enjoy your time at the U?
I did. It was beautiful, and I would just go and sit in it's Red Square, right? What do they call it? Yeah, that's what they call it, that center square. Or up in the library. I love to just sit on campus and enjoy the views. I was actually there. When was that big earthquake? Was it 2000?
Yeah, right around in there.
Yeah,
I was 90s, early around 2000. Right.
I was taking a class. I was leaving class to go back to work, and I was walking between a couple of the big buildings, and all of a sudden the birds just took off, with a lot of commotion, and I could hear the rumbling, and I looked up and everything started just shaking. And so I will always remember that moment on campus too, when the world, Seattle, but my world shook. So it was pretty scary, but exciting.
My children tell me, because I was out of town, and by the way, it really sucks when you're like in Arkansas and there's a 7 point something earthquake in Seattle. And so you try and call and you can't get through, and the CNN doesn't have any information for you and all that stuff. So that really sucked. But he was telling me that it was almost like, as he was watching the playground that he was on, it was like a wave was coming through, and the whole ground just kind of moved like a wave in water. It really was amazing.
It was. That was my first. I'd lived in Southern California a little bit and experienced some tremors too, but for some reason I guess in California I expected it. And so when they would come, it would be like, yeah, here we go, here's an earthquake. But that one just caught me so off guard, and it just struck me how the birds just made such a clamor and just took off, and kind of and I thought, what in the world is happening? And then it just started moving, so it was really interesting to see nature reacting first, to the whole thing.
Isn't it amazing how nature, we still don't know enough about what they think, and they're because the birds just got up and left.
Right.
They
were
knew
out.
what was coming.
We're out of here. I called my husband after I got home, and I said to Sam, oh man, because he was at work at the time, and I said, our house is our house is a mess. And he goes, oh no, did the TV get knocked down? What happened? I said, no, it's just our house is a mess. I need to clean it. We've been busy working and I'm going to school. So I guess it's time to clean because I can't tell if anything happened with the earthquake or not. So we got a big laugh out of that. I mean, we were younger then, busy working, going to school, trying to make ends meet. We didn't have kids yet that we could even blame that on. So
Well, but you're busy. You got stuff to do and places to go, things to do. And when did you've been writing for like ever, but when did you start? Did you always grow up as a writer in school, knowing what you wanted to do and write stories? When I've talked to people that have written stories when they were 5, 6, and 7, and that's just was part of their DNA. Is that kind of how it is for you?
absolutely not.
Oh, wow.
I always tell people this isn't what I wanted to do. I didn't think this was part of the plan. I just love to read. I always did. Reading was a big part of my life. And I actually went through a point in high school. I read a lot. I read a lot of adventures. I read a lot of romance with adventures set in in Europe and other places. And I wanted to be a camel jockey because I had read some romances with sheiks in them.
Oh,
And I
gotcha.
thought, wow, camel jockey, that sounds like an exciting career. And I even drew a picture in art in ninth grade of me on a camel because the teacher said, draw what you want to be when you're an adult. And my really good friend, she drew herself with a briefcase and she was a social worker. And she did turn out to be a social worker. She's amazing that way. I put a camel jockey, and I had me in the desert with sand dunes behind me. And that didn't work out so well. So I went on to try a lot of things. I thought at one point maybe a flight attendant, but then that just, I don't know, it just didn't seem like being in the airplane all the time is what I wanted to do. I just like the travel part. And then I thought, well, maybe an archaeologist, because I did Indiana Jones. We grew up, all of us, thinking that was the glamour, even though he did say that majority of archaeologists work is in the library, or classroom. But I thought maybe that, and that didn't turn out either. So ironically, I thought that's a lot of writing. If I'm gonna be an archaeologist, I'm gonna have to write way too much. So no thanks on that. And so I went through I thought maybe a lawyer. I just couldn't make up my mind. So it was in my mid-20s. I was reading a book. I finished. It wasn't quite what I wanted for an ending, and I was complaining to myself. And then I thought, well, shut up and write your own ending then if you think you can do better, and you want something more fulfilling for you, write it your way. And so that's kind of how it all got started. And it just built into books from there.
That's amazing. First of all, I want you to see if you can picture this quote. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Why did it have to be snakes? That's such
I,
a great show.
I use that all the time, and I'm not sure that anybody gets it, but because I have a fear of snakes, and so I don't want to be around them. But in any event, so it was almost by accident then that you started writing. And when you finished your first book, what did you think? Are you self-published, or did you go through a publisher, or how did that work?
Oof, this is back in the 90s before it was a thing, to do that. So I finished it. I typed up the first few chapters because I hand wrote that first book. And it was a romance. And I typed the first few chapters. I did a cover letter and I sent it off to Mills and Boon's Harlequin over in England. And they were very kind in their rejection. And they said, no, thanks, not our cup of tea, but keep writing. You show potential. And I believed them. So I kept going. I listened. I don't know if that was just their nice way of saying, oh, this poor girl, she shouldn't keep going. But I believed them and I kept going. And that's kind of how it all got started. I thought, okay, let's try again. And then let's try again. And it wasn't until let's see, Nearly Departed in Deadwood was the first book published, and that was my 8th book that I had written. I did go back and rewrite or edit and polish up the 5th book, which was Dance of the Winnebagos, and got that one redone, and then I went back eventually and republished, or really did a rewrite on book 3, and that became the first in the Dig Site series, Look What the Wind Blew In. So I went back and grabbed some of that old stuff, but they took work to get back up to, where I wanted them to be.
I can only imagine. And what was it about you that kept going when you had 8 books sitting there and you sent off letters and it was like, "Well, thank you very much. It's awfully nice of you to send that to us, but it's just really not what we want at the moment." What kept you going?
I don't know. I think I'm a little nuts and I'm obsessive. I think, part of it was I really love the idea of creating these worlds and writing stories. It had become kind of addictive by this point where it was so fun to sink into those worlds and to keep trying to improve my storytelling ability and make the characters and things come alive. And it became just a passion to try to get this right, try to nail this whole writing a book thing and do it so that when somebody read it, they could forget that I wrote it and enjoy the story, sink into the characters and the setting, and just, and give them a smile at the end, with the story, have them laugh as they went through it and come back to me and say, "That was great. That was so much fun. What else do you have?" There was something very addictive about that too, that it was like, "Oh, I like making people smile. I like giving them something to laugh about and smile about and have walk away feeling good."
Well, and as you know, the art form of writing a book includes the editing and the cover and all of that. Is all of that, did you do that? Did you send it out? How did that process work?
So for a while, I had an agent, and we were trying to go through the processes of getting published through a bigger publishing company. And I did have one of the bigger ones out of New York. The editors were very interested. They were working with me to get it published. And this was for Nearly Departed in Deadwood, the first in my Deadwood Mystery series. And it went through editing, and they taught, I learned a bit more from that editor as we went through it, and went clear up the chain to the final acquisitions meeting. And the marketing department came in and said, "We don't think this is going to sell, so we're rejecting it." So that was really heartbreaking. And I drank some wine and I got a speeding ticket, but not while I was drinking wine. I first got the speeding ticket, then I drank some wine about the whole bad day, just to get over the whole thing. And I was like, "What a mess. What are we going to do?" And at that time, this is, over a 15-year period, all this had been going on. I had been married before divorce, remarried, had kids, got, finished college, had a full-time job, kept doing all this through life. And this was about the time when Amazon was really starting to get going on independent authors, about 2009, 2010, and there 2011. And so I had another publisher interested in it, but they said, "No, not that one. We love your writing, though. How about you write a books that we outline? So we'll do it, and you write the story." And I said, "I can't even stay on my own outlines. How am I ever going to stay on somebody else's? This is not going to be a good relationship. We're going to fight. It's going to be ugly. I should just walk away before we go into this at all." So at that point, I had some friends that were publishing through Amazon as indie authors. And one of them, she's a good friend. She's like, "Come on, just jump, just try this and do it this way." So formed a small press at that time and did put the first book out, Nearly Departed in Deadwood. And it, by this point, I had submitted it for some national awards and it had won them. Wow, that was incredible. And had done a lot of pre-marketing because I'd spent a couple years really digging in and learning about marketing. Kind of, I feel like it's my master's class on marketing that I did for 2 straight years. So when we put that first book out, I had built a platform. I had already did some behind the scenes work to make it, get some reviewers and get things going. So it kind of burst out onto the scene, and I had some great fan support. And then I put it on Kindle Select, I think it's what it's called, where you can go for free for a few days.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so many books disappeared, and I mean they were, people had grabbed it up, and I was just kind of like, oh no, this was early to mid 2011, and I thought, what did I do? Did I just kill myself on the market because I just gave away a ton of books? But I already had book 2 out by then, and book 3 was almost out, and it turned out to be a heck of a springboard just to get it all going. And I still have these great readers and friends from way back then that say, I was there when I got the first book for free. That's how long I've been in this with Anne. So that's really cool.
So there are actually publishers that'll say, we'll do the outline and we want you to create the story around our outline. I've never heard of that before.
Yes, there were. And it surprised me. I was like, what? You're going to give me a template and I'm going to write to what you have? Um, I haven't explored the market enough to say, yeah, that happens a lot, but I've heard from other authors that that happens a bit, that there are writers that do that. It's like, but like I said, that was my brush with it. And I just said, no, thanks. I'm going to write my own stories because, again, the biggest thing was I can hardly follow my own outlines. How am I ever going to follow yours?
Well, it's kind of like what I've been told in my past is that I'm not a very good employee. So you're not apparently not a very good employee in that regard.
No, I don't think I would have been. No.
So well, that's outstanding. And so you've for the last 13 years, you've gotten 36 books out there and they've been well received and they've won. I'm curious to know how the books won awards and they weren't even published.
Oh, I know. Some of those awards were early on for nearly just blew me out of the water. And again, what I was told was that the marketing department at that time did not think having a book set in the Midwest would sell. And I said angrily to the person who gave me the news, "What do you think? I'm from the Midwest. What do you think we do in the Midwest? Just sit on our tractors all the time? My gosh, we read books. We're educated. We're smart, just like everybody else." But I think maybe at the time it was bigger to have a book set, in the big cities on the coasts or something. So it was a good thing in the end for me that that happened, because it pushed me to dig in deeper and try harder, and make it sell.
Well, and I've also noticed that the covers of the books are really colorful and they're really cool looking. Who did the covers? Was that
So
something?
that's my brother, C.S. Kunkel, Chuck Kunkel. He since he's about 4.5 years older than me. And he's had to put up with me in his room since I was born. The crib went in his room. So we always joke about he's been putting up with me since, he was 4.5. And since he was about 4.5, 5, he's been drawing. And he, in his early years as a kid, he would draw monsters. He loved monsters. And he's always, had that kind of direction with his art, and he can draw a lot of things, but one of his favorites, it seems, is still monster skeletons, some of that. So when I got rejected from the bigger publisher, he said, "I'd like to throw my hat in the ring if you're going to try to do this on your own, to be a cover artist and draw some of the cover art for you and see what you think." And I said, sure, let's do this, because I knew then how important having really strong covers was, and original art is just gold. If you can find someone that you can work with and have original art, it makes it so much easier on so many fronts, and it gives you a look that others can't easily copy. And so we started right out with Nearly Departed, and he gave me 3 different cover options. He come up with 3 different drawings, and I really loved one that's the clown cookie jar with a skeleton hand coming out of it. I love that. But it turns out I learned that a lot of people are really scared about clowns. And they won't touch them with a 10-foot pole.
There are movies about that. Um,
Exactly. They were like, no clouds, because we did kind of a test around the office about, what do you think of this cover? What do you think of this cover? What do you think of this? And I loved the clown with the skeleton hand, clown cookie jar, with a skeleton hand coming out of it. I just thought it was so awesome. But people were like, no clowns, no clowns. And I thought, ah, okay. So, it ended up being the cover that I have. Let me see if I can grab it quick behind me. This cover with the legs and the purple boots, which is the branding of this series, and the haunted house. And she sells real estate, so the haunted house is for sale. And that's, kind of how it all got rolling with him. And then he wanted to do some illustrations inside, and I thought that was a wonderful thing. It made the book slightly different because there aren't a lot of, adult fiction books with illustrations. Um, so there's about 6 to 7 illustrations in each book that he does as well. So it was a great way to work with him, and then also have these wonderful covers. And he just hit each cover, he keeps getting better and better and better. It's amazing how, I mean, his art just keeps getting better. Of course, as we age, we hope to all keep improving, but he now it's, we come up with a concept, kind of talk to him, let him mull it and decide, how will this look best? How can I portray this best? What can I do? The newest that we just did, I've got the proof line, so ignore that through it. But yeah, I mean, it was, we want to have a ghost, but we kind of wanted you to see that, we're in a graveyard, but just make it feel ghostly just by the cover. So he did the kind of glow around him, and yeah, it's just, he's such a great artist.
The really cool thing about that is all these things kind of lined up for you in your life, that each experience would lead you to the next experience. And now, because of your work, you're going to take your brother, who is, somebody's going to say, where'd you do that cover? Where'd you get that cover? And he could end up being a real cover drawer, or a painter, or something of note, because of what he does. Ann Charles is our guest, and she's written 36 books. We're going to talk more about that, her process, how it all happens, and going forward, and stuff like that. But we'll be right back. We need to take a quick break, and we shall return in just a second.
They have your eyes. They have your ears. They have your smile. Now all they need is a little more of your time. Make a difference in your child's life, because anyone can be a father. It takes time to be a dad.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, right here on the Brushwood Media Network. And I got to tell you, Ann Charles is with us, and she is an author. She works with, I got to believe that working with your significant other as a co-author can be a double-edged sword, but I'm hoping that Sam Lucky, according to your bio, he's a wonderful man, and he's probably a great dad too. Which is one of the reasons why I played that little clip. But how does it work working with your significant other in a creative process like that?
So first, to not just oh, he's the great dad, but he really is. He gets up, and since the beginning, he's gotten up and cooked breakfast for the kids before school every morning to make sure they go off with a proper breakfast, full tummies. And I have often told, and he cooks. I mean, I can cook, but I'm horrible, and I'm very limited. An example of my cooking, one time we came home, he was visiting his mom, and we came home without Sam. And I said to the kids, well, we don't have much. How about you make some fish sticks, melt some cheese on them, throw some tortilla chips on them, and we'll call them fish stick nachos. How's that sound? And they actually turned out not to be bad, but that's just an example of, I'll take a tortilla chip, put tomato paste, and sprinkle some mozzarella cheese on it, and we'll bake those. Yummy, yummy little tiny pizzas, right? Where Sam will cook these amazing casseroles or steaks or whatever. He's just, I've always told the kids, you're so lucky you have your father, or we'd all be so skinny and malnourished, and eating out of cans all the time, because I just can't cook. It's not in my genetic makeup. But as for working together on writing stories, so Sam's been there since I really got going. I mean, the first couple books that I hand wrote, we were just getting, dating and stuff. But then when I really got serious and started, working on the Deadwood Mystery series and more, he's always been there in the background, whether helping when I curse at the computer because I'm trying to build a web page on my own, and I'm, threatening the computer, and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Give that to me. Let me help you with this. So even on the books that don't have his name on them, he's been there. He reads the book. He's the first person to read the stories as I go through, and critique, edit, help me. He does the cover, graphic art. He's our graphic artist and has been for about the last 6 years or so. So he works with my brother to take the original art and scan it and then do the work needed to put it into cover format. So he's always been there. He just hadn't been there on the writing front, and he'd brainstormed with me a lot, but he'd not done the writing part. So it was a shift when he came on to write with me, and co-write this series. But luckily, we'd had kids for a lot of years by then. We'd remodeled a house, pretty much going down to the studs and building it back up by then. So we'd had a lot of work together, understanding how each other, has to work. But it still was a little different when it came to writing on the page and then going back and forth. So there have been a lot of great times, and there's been arguments, with, no, I don't think it should go that way. No, or maybe it should go this way, or, just back and forth. And I always tell people, they'll say, well, how do you decide who gets to, who wins? And I always say, who's ever the most passionate in the argument wins. The other one goes, okay, you win. If you feel that strongly about it, let's do it your way. So it's been an adjustment, but over the years, this was the latest, is the 5th book, but actually the 6th, because we have a Christmas book mixed in there. So yeah, this was the 6th book together, and it gets better and better as we get more and more used to sharing, space on the page with each other.
It really is amazing, because a lot of people can't work with their significant other in a really significant way like that, especially when you're putting your creative soul out there and stuff. So, have you ever stopped to think about how lucky you are and where your life has come from and how you discovered that you could write, and now you've got 36 books out there, you've been an award winner, you've got sales. Have you ever thought about how lucky you are?
I do often, seriously. I will go out to get the mail and just look around because it's the middle of the day and I'm in my pajamas, and it's a work week. It's in the middle of the week and I'm going to get the mail, and I think, oh, the neighbors probably think, there she goes again. Look at her pajamas today she's wearing. Does she ever dress? Does she shower? And so I will look down at I will always check the ants. I live in Arizona in the mountains. And so I use the ants a lot of time if they're building their mound to tell us if we're going to get some rain, which we always want rain down here. And I will just think, how fortunate am I that I can come out to get the mail in my pajamas and then check with the ants to see if we're going to get weather coming in. It's sometimes surreal that it's worked out this way. For years, so I worked full time as a technical writer. From about 1999, 2000 until 2013, when I was finally able to quit the day job and go full-time writing. And during those 13 years, I was working a full-time job in the day, and I would come home and be learning about marketing, building a website, trying to write story. And then we had kids in 2005 and 2007. So spending time with the kids and putting, the babies down, and just doing all of that, and still trying to spend about 6 to 8 hours a night, staying up till 2 a.m. to write story and try to keep building this, career. So there was so much there was a lot of time. I don't know how I did it at this age now going back. I'd be asleep halfway through all this, right? But back then I had energy and I, just was so driven to write for a living and have the freedom to go on field trips with my kids and not worry about my day job, and do what I needed, that way and create more and more story. So I don't take it for granted. It is hard work a lot of times, creating story. When I first quit the day job and I realized, okay, now I have to write books. There's no more, this is a side job. And, it just for fun. This is the real deal. And there's a moment of panic of, oh my gosh, I have to write books now. There's no, oh, this is fun, I'm going to write a story. It's no, you have to tell stories. This is now what you do for a living. So there was a moment of panic in there. But then once okay, we've been doing this, I kind of got that in my head of this is how it goes. And you know how to do this, just make it happen. Then I just kind of sank into it and said, okay, let's do it.
That is just awesome. By the way, we're talking with Ann Charles. She's an author. Go to her website, which is Ann, surprisingly enough, AnnCharles.com. And you can find all of the books. You can actually order the books. And please, 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 I want you to do one of two things for me. Either buy the book from her website, or if you're not able to do that, go to a small mom and pop bookstore that really, really values your business and order it through them so that they can make a little bit of money too. Amazon will be taken care of and stuff, and don't worry about that. But people can order it, can they not?
They can, yeah. And depending where you are too, you can also go to your a smaller bookstore and request that they order it. And so there's ways to still get it. We do a lot of distribution through different means. So some is through Ingram Sparks. There is some through Amazon. And of course, you can always, like you said, buy from me. I have an online store. And you can go to my website right on the first page. When you're looking at it, I think it's the mid right. It says buy from Ann Charles store. And if you do, I'll autograph it. If you want me to autograph it to somebody, I can do that. We keep a stock of all the books here, actually behind me here. And I throw in all kinds of extra fun promo swag because you're ordering from me, so I can do that.
There is a problem in our culture right now, and it involves musicians and it involves authors. And in my opinion, and I'm going to ask her when we come back from the station break, a couple things. One about marketing and what was the hardest thing to learn to do. But more so, there is a lot of authors that are not making any money because there is so much overhead and other people are taking money and that sort of thing from them. And musicians, the same thing. That's why I think it's important to buy music from the musicians, to buy books from the authors, because they're the ones that created all this stuff, and then other people are profiting from it. And I think that's okay. I get it. It's capitalism, but at the same point, I would much rather that the author get paid their due so that people like you will keep on doing what you're doing and can afford to go out into the front yard in your bunny slippers in the middle of the day and do what you need to do. You're listening to Positive Talk. My name, of course, is Kevin McDonald, and we'll be back with Ann Charles in just a minute, so stay with us.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Nice to have you here. We've got a great author here, and the story around what you've done, Anne, is really remarkable. Because a lot of times an author will come to me and say, or when I talk to them on the show, they'll say, yeah, when I was 3, I started writing in crayon, and it's just kept going ever since. This has been an evolution for you in your life, and it now is involving your husband, your brother, your kids, your and everything is kind of worked out the way you wanted it to. But there was a lot of, like you said earlier, there was a lot of hard, and I do mean hard work. Having a baby and having to write at 2:00 in the morning, and then you go to bed for an hour, and the baby needs to feed at 3. That's oh Lord, that would be tough. But in all of the things that you've done and had to learn to do, which was the hardest for you to do? The marketing, the writing, the illustrations, all the ideas. What was the most difficult thing?
Well, the writing's hard. I'm not one of those authors that says, oh, I just sit down and the words just pour out of me and I whip out a book. That's not it. Mine's more like birthing a baby that's breech. You got to work it around, get in there, turn it around. All the work that can go into that, it's not easy for me. And maybe part of that's because it wasn't my dream since I was a child to write. I remember when I finished my degree at UW, and it did include creative writing, because by that point I was starting to try to write, and I thought, well, maybe they can teach me some more stuff about writing, because this is hard, creating story out of the thin air and making it all believable and smooth. And my father said to me, he's solid the earth farmer back in Ohio, and said, what are you going to do with an English degree? And I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out along the way. There's got to be something out there I can do with this. So, some people will say, well, you obviously knew you were going to do this because of your creative writing degree. And that's not really the case. I tell the story, and I'll tell it very quickly. I went to 4 different colleges, and ended with UW. That was my final one. And each one made me retake English 101. Either I'm like, am I that bad? Really that bad? But each of them would say, we'll take all these other credits you have, but you need to take our English because it's different than the last. And I'm like, still in the US, how can it be that different? But they were different states and different requirements. So I often joke that by the time I had to take it one more time at University of Washington, it was like somebody hitting me with a frying pan, and I went, oh, I think I'm supposed to write. I think that's what this is meaning. I'm a little slow coming into this. So, getting that craft done is really hard. But I will say marketing is hard in a whole different way, overwhelming, so many possible ways you can go, trying to choose the right path. And then when you do choose a path, getting up in front of people and speaking, which can really help. If you can speak publicly, if you can go on podcasts and talk, it makes a big difference. It helps. So, that learning the ins and outs of all this marketing and trusting your gut and figuring out which method am I going to do in order to find new readers. And you could say, I don't want to talk to the public at all. I just want to spend money on ads and do it that way. And that's perfectly okay. But I said, I want to meet people. I want to talk to people. I like people. I like hearing some of their, life stories, and it's rewarding to me, fulfilling. So I kind of chose the relationship marketing style and went forth with that and built on that.
Well, the relationship style would be going to bookstores and doing book what do you call them when you go to a bookstore?
Book signings.
Book signing. That's
I feel like we're on $25,000 pyramid. Ask me another one. Let's do this again.
That was actually very good. Okay, and no, I can't come up with one real quick. Anyway, but you you go to bookstores and then you go elsewhere and but you do it from the ground up. So it becomes a very organic thing,
Right.
and it's a relationship building, isn't it?
Right, grassroots. This year, had we had our usual annual Deadwood Fan Party week, it would have been our 11th, 12th, 11th. I think 11th. Um, but I canceled it. My mom passed away this February, and she lived up there, and she was always a part of it. And I just said, I can't do it this year. I can't. I'm a very emotional person, and it's going to be hard for me to separate the two. I need some more time. So we'll do it again next year. And that involves people coming from all over the US, some from Canada. And they come into Deadwood, South Dakota, where the books, two of the series are set. And we have a great time. We do different book signings, but we'll do stuff like treasure hunts. We'll go into mines and do a tour of a mine. We'll do all kinds of really fun stuff together as a group. And I love it because I get to see these people. I get to hang out with them, and meet them. Some new, some are people that have been coming from since we started this. It's like getting together with old friends and some new ones coming in.
I tell you, I have that's on my bucket list, by the way, is Deadwood because my great grandfather lived there.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and that was way back when in the 1800s. And
Right.
matter of fact, he might have even known James Hickok.
How cool is
Because
that?
that
That's
would
cool.
I really should do some research on that because
Yeah.
my grandfather died in at 71. He died in 70. So he was born in. So it's very possible that he was living in Deadwood in the 1880s.
Right,
And
right.
and
You
that's
should they have an archivist. They have a really great Deadwood History has some really great, people working for them that if you contact them and you're saying, "This is who my grandfather was, and I wanna come to town and, learn more," they can help direct you to, find out more, all about him, through what they show, whether it's insurance records, or whatever they had going on at the time.
so what's it like there?
Oh, it's fun. It's they've made Deadwood is so amazing. I've been going there since I was a kid because my mom moved there when I was a kid. So it's like my second home. Um, when I was a kid, it was all about the tourism and the old west, and they would do everything about the old time Deadwood cow. But then gambling came to town in the 90s. South Dakota let there be gambling in this historic town. So there was all of a sudden here comes all these people from outside buying up stuff. And Deadwood worked pretty hard to keep the tourism and the history still there. So it wasn't just about gambling. It still had the history and it was family oriented that you could come with your kids. You could do all kinds of stuff around town. You could go to the museums. Or you could, if you like to gamble, if your kids are older or whatever, then you could go gambling out in the evening or whatever you want. So it's a real mix, but it's very old west.
I'll bet you that there's a gambling parlor there that's called the Dead Man's Hand Gambling Parlor. I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
They play a lot on that, and there are a couple establishments that have stuff, memorabilia on the walls and up around that have been there by that name since way back when Hickok and all that happened. But Deadwood has just, in addition to Lead, which is its sister city, which is where the huge gold mine was, that was one of the biggest for many, many, many years, decades. You can go between the two towns, and there's such a rich history. There's like 3 miles between them. So you go back and forth, and between the two of them, there's so much to do, so much to keep you busy. It's amazing.
And pardon me for doing that because I really would like your opinion on this as well. But that is because we are now in 2024.
Oh,
We
man.
have it's like the 90s were 35 years ago. It's 34 years ago. It's like, come on, really? But so there are lots of people when I say Dead Man's Hand or James Hickok or Calamity Jane and stuff, they have no earthly idea who I'm talking about. And so James Hickok was a man and a gunfighter, and he was playing poker one day, and he had a hand, and a man came up and shot him in the back of the head and killed him. and that's hence the dead man's hand. Is James? He's still buried there, isn't he?
Yes. You go up to Mount Moriah, which is the cemetery. So you're in the Black Hills, which are like the foothills there in Seattle. It's not Mount Rainier, by any means, but it's beautiful. It's hilly country, and up above town sits Mount Moriah Cemetery, and then you can go up there to see where he was buried. You can see Calamity Jane. You can see all kinds of characters. Seth Bullock. Anything. If you start reading up on the Old West in that time, you can get a lot of interesting people that came through Deadwood. It was a popular place back then. There was gold.
It was the gold mine, and that was one of the reasons that when Ulysses S. Grant was president and they discovered gold in the Black Hills, Custer was part of that, and then they changed the reservation of the Sioux because the Black Hills was a sacred place to the Sioux, and they took that away from them and put them someplace else where it was just flat and stuff, and so that led them to revolt, which led to Custer's Last Stand and stuff like that. So there's a great deal of Western history. Buffalo Bill was in that area as well. There's a great deal of Western history that surrounds Deadwood, so it really would be a fun place to go to.
It is. There's so much if you're into history, even if you're not, and you just want that experience of kind of walking through buildings that have been around since the, late 1800s, early 1900s. They've kept them up. They have history society. A lot of the houses have to go through certain things before they can remodel, because they're trying to keep this town feeling and looking a little bit more like it did back then, which is really fun.
By the way, I didn't misrepresent any of that, did I?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of, we don't have a lot in our stories about Wild Bill Hickok. There's just mentions now and then, because there are so many different takes on what was going on with his life and what he was doing. And until we can dig them up and somehow, get their ghost and get them to tell this true story, I think we're all, playing with what we've, different things we've read.
Well, and I said James Hickok, which is what his given name was, but he was known as Wild Bill.
Wild Bill, yep.
And also, a lot of that is now legend, and right. It's hard to know exactly. I mean, you hear legends about what kind of a sharpshooter he was and all this kind and stuff. So you don't really know. But it would be really fun to go back in time and to see what. Wouldn't it be terrible if he turned out to be 5'4" and a short, portly guy that had that would be,
yeah, it would be a change, that's for sure, from all the tales about him.
Yeah. So, well, good. Thank you, because I know nothing about Deadwood other than the history of it, but I need to go there and to see. It's
beautiful country too. I mean, you're in some beautiful areas, so it's pretty scenery in addition to it all.
Except for the snakes. Why there have to be snakes?
There's some snakes, yes. I have come across snakes there.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I would wear hip boots if I had to go there.
To be truthful, I mean, I hiked all over. As a kid, I went into old mines. I did all kinds of stuff there. And the only place I've ever come across a rattlesnake was actually over in the Badlands when we were hiking around there in the Badlands to the east. So in the Black Hills, the snakes I've come across have been more pleasant. If you feel snakes can be pleasant.
I was going to say, I was talking with somebody that actually has a snake in their house, and it's like, and you can sleep at night? What if it's a snake? And she said, oh no, there's passive and stuff. So in any event, we're talking with Ann Charles, and she's an author. She's written 36 books. Her husband is also an author, Sam Lucky, and their brother is the illustrator. And go to AnnCharles.com and find out all about what they're doing. It really is. You have a really, really great story. You know that, right?
Well, we're still working on that story. So
No, you ain't done yet. You got another 100 years or 50 years or 75 years or whatever.
I'm not sure how my kids feel about how long I live, but yeah, I hope to have a long time. They might be done. I mean, they were raised in this environment of saying, coming in on conversations and going, now, is this a real person? Are we talking about somebody that's really living, or is this somebody that's fake that you've made up? Because I can't tell.
You have the same problem I do with my sons talking about the podcast. It's like they don't get what I do. They don't really appreciate the things and stuff. So I just kind of let it
Yeah.
lie there.
Yeah.
But my kids will be happy because they've already told me that when I can no longer take care of myself, I'm not going to live with them. They're going to send me to a home. And
Well, at least they're being straightforward about it, so you know where you're going.
yeah, so except they're saying, okay, save some money because you're going to the home, and that's going to be the end of that.
Yeah,
Ken,
my daughter, sorry, she says, "I'm gonna take you to Europe and get you a place there." And I'm like, "Well, where's your dad?" "Well, I'm taking him to Alaska." And I'm like, "Well, do we get to see each other ever? What?" And she's like, "I'll let you visit." Like, what? It's crazy.
oh, children, what do you do?
Yeah.
And again, we're talking with Ann Charles. Go to her website, anncharles.com. We need to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Positive Talk Radio. We're going to take a short break to tell you audio and music creators about our commercial affiliate, Lyric Vids, specializing in creating amazing and engaging lyric videos. Are you looking to promote your videos in the most engaging way, but you don't have an animator and an editor? Whether you're an artist, musician, or business with a message to share, our lyric videos are designed to hook viewers and amplify your reach. Go to positivetalkradio.net/lyric vids. That's positivetalkradio.net/LYRICVIDS now to get started. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. We hope you enjoyed learning about our affiliate Lyric Vids, who specialize in creating captivating animated lyric videos. Now let's get back to the show.
And welcome back to Positive Talk, everybody. We have a great guest with us today. I really have enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have, Ann. I've really enjoyed having you on the show.
Yes, I've been laughing a lot at and that's what I love about, writing with humor in it. I'm always trying to create a story that gives you something to chuckle as you wince and cringe and go through all of it as well.
How is it that, because I can't do that, I am more of a improvisational humorist, if you will, meaning that I can come up with something off the cuff, but I couldn't write down humor to save my life. How do you do it?
I don't know. And if I dig too deep, I'm afraid I'll ruin it. But that's I always tell I tell people every now and then, I don't look into the sun. I just wear my sunglasses and keep going. There was different stuff in childhood, early divorce, stuff like that. That was a bit traumatic. And I think that if you learn to find humor, even in the dark times, even in their struggles, it can take you a long way to bouncing back and getting back to, a more positive vibe or road. And so when I started writing, it was just there. I was going to have, scary stuff, exciting stuff, adventure, and always humor mixed in because I just think I love to laugh.
Yeah. Well, laughter is, as they say, the best medicine. And it's also a great way to get through some of the negatives in life that we have to go through. Because let's face it, we all do.
Yes,
The experiences in life, we have good ones. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. It's a good witch or a bad witch. And it's a good experience or a bad experience, but they're still experiences and we learn from them all. And it's
exactly.
fun to reflect when you get a little bit longer in the tooth like I am. I get to reflect upon what happened that at the time was like, I can't believe that happened to me. And then you fast forward 10 or 15 years, you can see how it played out.
Right.
And why it played out the way it did, so that you could continue on the journey that we're on, which I call the great adventure.
Mhm.
Because we all have the opportunity to have this great adventure, and it depends on how we decide to use it.
Exactly. I can't tell you how many times from the Lord of the Rings, there's a line, "How did it come to this?" I believe that's the line. And I often say that and like, "Oh, how did it come to this?" And then you move on, and you keep going. And it's in the look back where you find the humor, sometimes even, you'll and if it's hard enough, you think there's gonna come a time when I can look back at this and I can smile or laugh, depending on the situation. So in hard times, I often, when I ask myself, how did it come to this? I think just keep going, and this will be in your rear view mirror, and you'll be able to look back and you've learned from it and you can chuckle about it a lot of times.
Yeah, I've had things happen to me that now I can tell a funny story around them, even though at the time I'm really glad that I did not have a firearm because I would have used it on somebody at the
You were
time. You know what I mean?
right, right. It was so bad at the time. Yeah.
But now
So
it's over.
that's what with these books. My point is that life is really bad sometimes. It's really hard. It's sad. It's grief filled. It's exhausting. But if you can sink into a story that takes you away and makes you laugh while you're wincing, and their life is not perfect either, who you're reading about, but you see how they keep persevering, then maybe you can find what you need inside you to keep going.
And that is the story of the lifetime. Is because you just need to keep going. And in your case, you'd written 7 books and got rejected 7 times
Yes.
before the 8th book was accepted, and you just did not quit. And congratulations for your intestinal fortitude on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not easy. Anything you really want in life with a passion, it's not easy usually. If it is easy for you, don't come tell me about it because that's gonna make me feel just hang my head and just,
Well, but you see, we all have our different gifts, and some things are easy for some of us, and some things are a little bit more challenging. But when you rise above the challenge and you don't quit, that's what I call grit. You have
Right.
what I call grit.
Thank you. Well, I keep going, I have to. It's what makes life an adventure, right?
That's it. That's it. We've been talking with Ann Charles. Go to her website, anncharles.com. We've got about 45 seconds. Can you tell us anything that you'd like us to know?
All the books are out there as ebooks, print books, and audiobooks. So if you like to listen instead of read, on the page or on your, whatever you're using to read, you can just stick them in, whatever player, they're MP3s, listen to them, enjoy them, help them take, on the road, get through traffic, whatever you need.
On the road again.
Now I'm going to sing that all day.
It's been a pleasure talking with you, Ann. You'll have to come
Thank
back.
you.
We need to do this. When next time you have a book coming out for release, you need to come back.
All right.
And we'll talk about that, okay?
Okay. Let's do it.
Awesome. Ann Charles, go to anncharles.com, find out all about her. And you might even be able to talk her into maybe giving you some tips if you're a budding writer and on how you can put the marketing and all the things together that she's done because it has to be done. So thank you very much, Ann, for being here. Ann Charles, anncharles.com. I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at kmmedia.pro.